Have you ever wondered why your sexual energy feels like both a blessing and a curse? Why it surges within you as raw desire, yet so often collapses into shame, repression, or fleeting pleasure? Carl Jung believed that this force is far more than biology. It is a gateway into the unconscious, a hidden current that, if harnessed, can fuel profound inner transformation. Most of us either suppress it or lose ourselves to it. But Jung saw another path: to engage with our sexual energy as a symbolic language of the psyche, a key to individuation. What if your lust, your fantasies, even your shame, were not obstacles, but messages? What if repression and trauma could be turned into power? Have you ever felt a stirring inside you, a surge of energy so potent it leaves you breathless, unsettled, even a little afraid, a desire so raw it feels as if it could either destroy you or lift you to a new level of understanding? Most of us react the same way. We either suppress it, distract ourselves, or surrender to it in ways that leave us empty. But Carl Jung believed this energy, this sexual drive, this raw, often chaotic force, is not something to be hidden or feared, but something to be explored, understood, and transformed. Jung saw sexual energy not merely as a biological impulse, not merely as pleasure or reproduction. He saw it as a symbolic psychic force, a form of energy that flows through the unconscious, shaping who we are, how we perceive the world, and even how we encounter ourselves. In his view, this energy is deeply tied to the process he called individuation, the journey of becoming whole, integrating all parts of the psyche, both conscious and unconscious. Sexual energy carries messages from the unconscious. It communicates in symbols, fantasies, and desires, often in ways we do not fully understand. These messages are frequently masked by shame, repression, or trauma. The tragedy for most people is that they experience lust, desire, and sexual longing as something shameful, dangerous, or merely distracting. They fail to see it as a map to their inner world. They fail to see it as a teacher. To understand this, we must first confront the shadow, the part of ourselves that we do not see or that we deny. The shadow is where all repressed desires, unacknowledged emotions, and unprocessed traumas reside. Sexual energy is particularly tied to this hidden realm. The desires we suppress, the fantasies we hide, even from ourselves, the shame we feel for feeling what we feel, all of these gather in the shadow, simmering beneath the surface, influencing our thoughts, behaviors, and relationships in ways we rarely understand. Imagine the energy that flows through you as a river. Most of us have been taught to dam this river, to control it, to keep it proper and polite. Yet no matter how tightly we try to seal it, water always finds a way. It seeps through cracks, sometimes erupting in ways that feel destructive. Jung would argue that when we deny or repress our sexual energy, it does not disappear. It transforms, often into compulsion, projection, or self-sabotage. We may find ourselves irresistibly drawn to certain people, repeating patterns that we cannot explain, or experiencing shame that seems disproportionate to our actions. This is the shadow at work. Sexual repression is not merely a moral or cultural issue, it is psychological. Trauma, social conditioning, and internalized shame shape our relationship with desire from an early age. Many people grow up learning that sexual energy is dangerous, sinful, or unacceptable. Others experience trauma that taints intimacy and connection, leaving the psyche scarred and defensive. These experiences teach the unconscious to hide, distort, or weaponize desire. Over time, this creates what Jung called emotional numbness, a state where the psyche retreats from deep feeling, where we lose contact with the very energy that could drive creativity, connection, and personal growth. Yet sexual energy, even when suppressed or shamed, is never inert. It pulses beneath the surface, waiting to be acknowledged, understood, and transformed. Jung saw erotic energy as a form of life force, a psychic power that, when consciously engaged, can fuel individuation. Individuation is the process of becoming whole, integrating the conscious self with the unconscious, accepting both light and dark within us. It is the journey towards self-realization. Sexual energy, with all its complexity, is one of the primary keys to unlocking this journey. Consider the fantasies, desires, and attractions that arise within you, often when you least expect them. Many people dismiss these experiences as guilty pleasures or dangerous indulgences. Jung, however, argued that these impulses are symbolic. They are not random. They are messages from the unconscious, communicating aspects of the psyche that are hidden, disowned, or underdeveloped. The unconscious may speak through dreams, projections onto others, or sudden, inexplicable stirrings of lust and longing. Each experience carries information about your shadow, your anima, and the parts of yourself you have yet to integrate. The anima, the inner feminine archetype within the male psyche, is a perfect example. Jung described the anima as the personification of the unconscious feminine, shaping attraction, emotion, and relational dynamics. When unconscious, the anima can project onto others, creating patterns of desire, obsession, and disappointment. But when integrated, the anima becomes a guide, a bridge to the unconscious, and a source of deep emotional richness. The sexual energy tied to the anima, when consciously explored, is not merely desire. It is insight, creativity, and transformation waiting to unfold. Harnessing sexual energy for transformation does not mean suppressing it, nor does it mean indulgence without awareness. It means listening, observing, and learning. It means understanding the messages hidden within desire, shame, and fantasy. It means confronting the parts of yourself that you have long denied. It's the desires that scare you, the shame that haunts you, the fantasies you hide even from yourself. This confrontation, this conscious engagement, is the path to wholeness. Sexual energy, when consciously integrated, illuminates the shadow, guides the anima, and transforms emotional numbness into vitality. Jungian perspectives on erotic shame, unconscious attraction, and the psychological meaning of lust help decode these unconscious energies. Practices like semen retention serve not as moral prescriptions, but as symbolic tools for conserving and redirecting psychic energy. Sexual energy is not a source of guilt, shame, or confusion. It is a profound teacher. Its desires, fantasies, and attractions are messages, symbols, and invitations from the unconscious. A guide toward integration, wholeness, and self-realization. To understand sexual energy as a transformative force, we must confront the shadow, the hidden, often denied parts of ourselves where repressed emotions, unprocessed traumas, and unexpressed desires reside. Sexual energy in its rawest form is a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. It carries the unspoken, the taboo, and the repressed. We are taught from a young age that certain desires are wrong or shameful. Culture, religion, and family impose strict boundaries on what can be felt, expressed, or imagined. Hide parts of ourselves to survive, to fit in, to be acceptable. The psyche does not forget. Desires, fantasies, and longings suppressed are pushed into the shadow, where they fester, influence behavior, and sometimes sabotage our lives. When sexual energy is repressed, it manifests in unexpected and destructive ways. Compulsive behavior, addiction, obsessive thoughts appear. We may find ourselves drawn to partners or situations that repeat old patterns of shame, trauma, or unacknowledged desire, because the shadow seeks expression. It is like a pressure cooker. The more we deny it, the more it finds a way to express itself, often through projection. Projection is a fundamental Jungian concept. When we fail to recognize our own desires, we see them in others. We blame, criticize, or idealize. Not realizing what we witness externally is often a reflection of our internal shadow. Trauma, particularly sexual trauma, amplifies the shadow. Experiences of abuse, coercion, or humiliation create psychic wounds that fragment our sense of self. Desire becomes entangled with fear, shame, and distrust. Sexual energy that should flow freely and creatively becomes blocked, redirected, or weaponized. Intimacy may feel dangerous, and over time this creates emotional numbness. Protective mechanism where the psyche shuts down, dulling pleasure and pain. Jung did not view the shadow merely as a source of dysfunction. He saw it as a treasure trove of latent power, insight, and creativity. The shadow, when confronted consciously, reveals the energies we need for transformation. Sexual repression is not just a limitation. It is a clue pointing to aspects of the psyche needing acknowledgement, acceptance, and integration. The task is not to eliminate the shadow, but to dialogue with it, understand its messages, and transform its hidden energy into conscious power. Desire, lust, or erotic fascination are often accompanied by guilt, anxiety, or shame. These conflicts are precisely where shadow material emerges. Shadow work involves recognizing these feelings, observing them without judgment, and understanding what part of ourselves they reveal. Sexual repression takes many forms. Some withdraw entirely from sexual expression, avoiding intimacy, fantasy, or erotic exploration. Others indulge compulsively, seeking to fill the void created by suppression. Both extremes are symptoms of an unintegrated shadow. Ignoring, denying, or fearing sexual energy fragments the psyche. The energy is present, but manifests unconsciously, often leading to self-sabotage, destructive relationships, or chronic dissatisfaction. Transformation begins with awareness, observing how sexual energy has been repressed, shamed, or distorted. Journaling, therapy, meditation, and reflection illuminate the shadow. By attending to desires, fantasies, and attractions, even uncomfortable ones, we decode unconscious messages. Jung referred to this as individuation, becoming whole by integrating the shadow into conscious awareness. Sexual energy is a pathway into the shadow and a tool for integration, healing, and personal growth. Projections in relationships reflect shadow material. Traits in others provoking intense attraction or irritation indicate unacknowledged shadow aspects. Sexual desire mirrors unintegrated parts of the psyche. By reflecting on these experiences, we reclaim energy trapped in repression and redirect it toward conscious self-understanding. Repression is rarely personal fault alone. Society, family, and culture impose constraints. These pressures lead us to hide, deny, or distort desires. Yet the psyche resists suppression. The tension between repressed desire and conscious denial generates energy. If ignored, it creates inner conflict, anxiety, or compulsive behavior. If acknowledged, it becomes a potent tool for transformation, fueling creativity, insight, and self-realization. Shadow work requires courage, honesty, and patience. Confront desires and impulses that feel shameful or frightening. Acknowledge fantasies that challenge self-image or moral framework, and do so without judgment. Understanding these aspects are part of a larger unconscious system seeking integration. This engagement with the shadow is essential for full development. Sexual energy, when consciously integrated, guides through the unconscious, illuminating the hidden terrain of the soul. Practical approaches include mindfulness, self-reflection, journaling, therapy, conscious sexual expression, meditation, or symbolic techniques like semen retention to redirect raw energy toward personal growth. Creativity and emotional integration. Sexual repression is a signal indicating unintegrated energy, hidden desires, and unacknowledged parts of the psyche. By confronting these aspects consciously, observing without judgment, and engaging with the shadow, we reclaim energy that transforms inner life. The energy that once caused shame, anxiety, or compulsion becomes a source of vitality, creativity, and self-realization. Jung's vision of sexual energy is radical, challenging conventional morality, social norms, and simplistic ideas about desire. Sexuality becomes a doorway, a bridge into the unconscious, a tool for integration, and a pathway to individuation. When repression is lifted and the shadow confronted, sexual energy no longer remains a source of conflict, but becomes a guiding force, illuminating the most transformative dimensions of the self. Unconscious attraction is the shadow's whisper, soft yet impossible to ignore. Being inexplicably drawn to someone, noticing recurring patterns and fantasies, or attraction to seemingly wrong people are expressions of the unconscious. They reflect hidden qualities, desires, or aspects of the shadow unintegrated within oneself. We project these unconscious elements onto others, generating intense attraction, obsession, or conflict, as the other becomes a mirror for the unintegrated psyche. Fantasy is symbolic, not trivial. Erotic fantasy reveals desires, fears, and conflicts we cannot face directly, connected deeply to the shadow and the anima archetype. Fantasies that excite, scare, or disturb are clues to what the psyche communicates, containing hidden truths about emotional landscape, patterns of attraction, and unresolved conflicts. Erotic shame arises when sexual desire feels morally or psychologically threatening. Cultural conditioning, trauma, and family expectations compound shame, creating a psychic wound. Erotic shame is not personal condemnation, but a barrier preventing conscious engagement with the unconscious. It distorts desire, fragments the psyche, and blocks energy that could fuel transformation. Jung saw erotic shame as a signal. Its intensity often corresponds to the depth of unintegrated shadow. By confronting and exploring erotic shame, we reclaim energy, redirecting it toward individuation. Sexual energy acknowledged rather than denied becomes a force for growth, self-awareness, and emotional richness. Unconscious attraction and erotic shame generate psychological tension. Attraction to qualities secretly desired but unaccepted, or situations triggering guilt or anxiety, are psyche attempts at communication. Jung encouraged careful listening. Reflecting on attractions and fantasies provides insight into shadow, anima, and unintegrated desire. Patterns repeat in relationships, fantasies, or emotional responses. Compulsive enactments of the shadow reflect unconscious attempts to reconcile unintegrated aspects. Awareness decodes these messages, transforming them into opportunities for self-understanding and growth. Erotic shame impacts intimacy, creating barriers to connection, suppressing emotions, or projecting unresolved conflict onto partners. Integrating erotic shame involves acknowledging desire without judgment, exploring symbolic meaning, and reclaiming trapped energy. Sexual energy becomes a catalyst for pleasure, emotional maturity, empathy, and self-integration. The anima in men and animus in women represent unconscious feminine and masculine aspects, shaping emotional life, capacity for intimacy, and attraction patterns. Projection of these archetypes creates idealization, overwhelming attraction, or destructive patterns. Recognizing and integrating these energies transforms unconscious attraction into self-awareness, deepening relational capacity. Shadow work, unconscious attraction, and erotic shame are interwoven. Each facet seeks acknowledgement, integration, and transformation. Fantasy, desire, and attraction reveal hidden truths. Shame, guilt, and discomfort signal unintegrated energy. Curiosity, courage, and reflection turn these energies into guides, illuminating the path to individuation. Confronting unconscious attraction and erotic shame is not moral judgment or repression. Observation, reflection, and conscious engagement uncover hidden psyche architecture, distinguishing projection from genuine connection, compulsive enactment from conscious choice. Transforms sexual energy from confusion into a tool for self-integration. Practical approaches include journaling, fantasies, and attractions, reflecting on emotional patterns, seeking therapy, and meditation to observe urges without reaction. Symbolic practices like semen retention redirect and conserve psychic energy, amplifying transformation. Unconscious attraction and erotic shame are invitations to explore the psyche, confront the shadow, and reclaim repressed energy. They reveal opportunities for growth, integration, and emotional depth. Sexual energy, when consciously observed and reflected upon, bridges unconscious and conscious, repression and expression, shame and self-knowledge. Jung's perspective reframes sexual energy as sacred and transformative, illuminating the deepest self when approached consciously. Understanding unconscious attraction and confronting erotic shame cultivate radical self-awareness where desire is not feared, fantasy not condemned, and shame becomes guidance. The next time an unexplainable attraction, persistent fantasy, or wave of shame arises, lean in, observe, reflect. Identify the shadow speaking, the anima's message, and the energy waiting to be reclaimed. This begins transforming sexual energy into a tool for individuation, self-integration, and emotional depth. Carl Jung believed understanding sexual energy requires examining archetypal forces shaping attraction, fantasy, and intimacy. At the center is the anima, the unconscious feminine in men and animus in women. Deep patterns, influencing feelings, relationships, and desire. The anima embodies emotional depth, intuition, creativity, and connection to unconscious aspects inaccessible to consciousness. When unrecognized or projected, it distorts relationships, generates compulsive attraction, and provokes emotional turbulence. Projection is the key mechanism. We see the anima outside ourselves and others, generating attraction, fear, or idealization. Stronger pull indicates deeper unconscious recognition needed. Recognizing the anima within reclaims psychic energy, reduces compulsive behaviors, and deepens self-awareness. Sexual energy is symbolic expression of unconscious forces. The people, situations, and fantasies exciting us are manifestations of archetypal feminine or masculine within. Exploring patterns of attraction and desire grants access to hidden unconscious realms. Fantasies and shameful urges are communications inviting recognition, reflection, and integration. The anima has layers. Early maternal relationships embody nurturance and care. Deeper layers embody sexuality, passion, erotic desire, linked to libido and transformation. And spiritual layers point to intuition and emotional transcendence. Projected anima creates obsession, idealization, or disappointment. Relationships mirror the unintegrated anima. Recognizing this dynamic transforms sexual energy from confusion into self-knowledge. Integration begins with conscious awareness, observing patterns of attraction, fantasies, and emotional responses with curiosity. Asking what qualities are sought and unacknowledged illuminates unconscious dynamics, claiming projected energy and redirecting desire inward. Erotic shame and repression intertwine with the anima. Unconscious feminine energy suppressed generates guilt or conflict, manifesting as compulsive behavior, numbness, or distorted relationships. Integration involves accepting desire, passion, and erotic energy, channeling it consciously, transforming libido into creative and personal growth. Sexual energy consciously engaged fuels artistic expression, intuitive insight, and personal growth. Semen retention symbolically conserves and redirects libido, amplifying transformative potential. The anima teaches emotional intelligence, sensitivity, intuition, empathy, and perception of subtle currents. Sexual energy connected to the anima signals areas needing attention. Integration and healing, advancing individuation. Practical engagement includes journaling fantasies, meditation, observing projections, and emotional triggers in relationships. Integrating unconscious energy into conscious awareness, emotional depth, and creative vitality. The anima and sexual archetypes are living forces shaping desire, relationships, and inner life. Jung reframed sexuality as a pathway to self-knowledge, individuation, and psychic wholeness. Sexual energy is a teacher, mirror, and bridge to the unconscious. Consciously engaging the anima reclaims projected or repressed energy into psychological power. Desire and fantasy are opportunities to observe, reflect, and reclaim energy, integrating the anima consciously. Sexual energy becomes symbolic, transformative, and liberating. Sexual energy, called libido by Jung, drives desire, creativity, emotional depth, and the will to grow. Left unconscious, it scatters, fueling compulsion, fantasies, and projections. Harnessed consciously, it elevates the psyche, enriches relationships, and deepens self-awareness. Practices like semen retention channel energy instead of squandering it. Retention is symbolic, cultivating conscious engagement with libido. Energy otherwise dissipated through sexual release is channeled into growth, integration, and creative expression. Lust is reframed as unconscious expression, signaling unacknowledged needs and potential energy. Desire, objects of attraction, fantasies, and accompanying shame are clues to unconscious forces. Scattered energy through compulsive behavior or unconscious indulgence loses transformative potential, leading to numbness, relational dissatisfaction, and incompleteness. Semen retention reclaims energy, increases awareness of desire, and transforms libido into conscious psychic power. Consciously observing desire confronts shadow, decodes unconscious messages, and integrates disowned self-aspects. Retention is attention, presence, and psychological.